Welcome to Angling Buzz presented by Fleet Farm. I'm Troy Lindner. We have a great show lined up today. We're talking about smallmouth bass. This is a fan favorite for anglers across the upper Midwest, myself included. And you know, we've really seen the smallmouth bass range expand recently into rivers, lakes, and streams across North America. You can catch them up into Ontario, you can catch them in Washington, New York, even at the US-Mexico border, and even over in Hawaii. But nothing beats the upper Midwest when you're talking about size and populations. Now, these are hardy fish. They can feed on bugs, minnows, perch, and crayfish, and that also depends on what you use for tactics when we're talking about location and presentation, because they can suspend, they can go shallow, and they can even go deep. And today's show, we have a special guest, Jeff Gustafson. He's a Bassmaster, Elite Series angler, also a smallmouth bass specialist. So Jeff, where are you currently and how's the tournament season going?
I'm actually at home between tournaments right now. We're a little over halfway through the season, but I'm excited because we're heading to smallmouth country, coming up next. So that excites me. You know, during the course of the season, we got to fish for all three species: smallmouth, largemouth, spotted bass. But when we get to go to smallmouth country, definitely makes me happy. I grew up on the north side of Lake of the Woods up in Kenora, and fished smallmouths my whole life. So fishing against the Elite Series field, definitely feel like I have a little bit more of an advantage when we get to chase the brown ones. Okay.
Well, Jeff, it's early June. What are some key areas that you're looking for to find them right now?
Definitely one of the areas I like to look for are weed flats. And if they've got some rock mixed in, that's even better. That fresh cabbage, they love that stuff. Usually you can use your eyes, get some polarized shades, be able to see them a little bit. Generally still pretty shallow. The big sand flats with some rock on them can be good too. And like big reefs, the bigger the better, just simply because they can hold more fish.
And Jeff, what are some of your favorite baits for this time of year?
It's a toughie because you can catch smallmouths obviously on a lot of different baits, but number one, gotta be a top water, and I'll have this tied on all summer. But that's a Bagley Pro Sunny B twin spin. So, you can see it's a double prop bait, and in June, mayflies are a big thing. So this thing makes a little buzzing sound. I think it makes them mad, and it's kind of like those mayflies, coming up to the surface and buzzing. You can cover some water with it, and works great on the weed flats. So as a follow-up bait to that, say you miss one or you see some cruisers up there, this is probably my number one smallmouth bait of all time. Just a simple little 3/32 ounce marabou jig. Really can't go wrong with the hair jigs. Anytime that the smallmouths are up in shallow water, cruising, milling around. If you're fishing with a buddy, also a great bait for the following fish. You often will hook a smallmouth and they'll have, friends, we call them friends, but followers with the hooked fish. It could be a leech or a bug, but I think it's just an after dinner mint where, the topwater bait or the chatterbait is a steak. So the hair jig's always on board. Another great bait, especially if it's a little bit windier out for covering water and just simply finding fish, a little crankbait. So this is a Bagley Sunny B, and it's gonna dive, in that 6 to 8 foot range. So kind of perfect for what we want right now. I'm gonna throw this on windblown shorelines, around some rock. It's a good little crayfish imitator, and also bait fish as well. Once you find them, with this, then we'll get out some of the jigs and finesse baits. I'm gonna go with, probably go with the Ned rig. It used to be a tube, but anymore, the little Ned rig's kind of my go-to. It's a 4-inch worm that I like to, take about 3/4 of an inch off the top of it, shorten it up a little bit, and that's a deadly little smallmouth bait. Just a great bait for, crawling around on the bottom in areas where you know that there's fish. Or, if you're going along, you see some fish out front on the Mega Live, that's what I'm pitching at them most of the time. Very seldom will I use anything but green pumpkin. Just green pumpkin works everywhere. finally, my fifth bait, and this is gonna get better as the season goes on and the fish start to get out a little bit deeper, but the old jerk shad is pretty tough to beat. If I see fish on my, below my transducer, that's what I'm gonna drop down to them. If I'm out a little bit deeper and I can see them out front on Mega Live, I'm gonna cast this thing and just sort of reel it right over top of where the fish are. And that's just a deadly smallmouth fish catcher all year round. But that's it for me. Those are my 5 go-tos in smallmouth country.
Jeff, thanks for taking some time out in your busy schedule, and good luck this tournament season. And stay with us. After this short commercial break, we have more Angling Buzz.
In 2021, Minnesota watercraft inspectors found that 95% of boaters were doing their best to prevent the spread of aquatic invasive species. In short, drain plugs were removed, no standing water was inside the boat, and no zebra mussels or plants were found on the boat or trailer. Thanks for following these simple habit-forming rules. Clean aquatic plants and animals from boats, trailers, and equipment. Drain all water from motors and live wells. Remove all boat plugs and dispose of unused bait in the trash. Simple, fast, and easy. This automatic launching and loading system on boat-to-trailer.com makes unloading and loading your boat a breeze on both roller or bunk trailer configurations. This system is a simple one-bolt install. No more hanging over the boat, no more cranking in the boat, and no more wet feet. Speed your boat ramp time by visiting boat-to-trailer.com.
Marine Pro, from the makers of Seafoam Motor Treatment. Marine Pro is a complete marine fuel system treatment for all types of marine engines. Just pour it in. Marine Pro works to clean and lubricate your entire fuel system, helps engines start easier and run smoother, stabilizes fuel, and helps prevent costly boat engine problems. Fast starts and smooth running power have never been this easy. Seafoam Marine Pro, available at Fleet Farm.
Like many of you, I've had back issues.
From the pounding waves of Lake Erie
to over 30 years of competitive angling.
And a lifetime on the water, but not anymore.
Smooth Moves changed the game.
It's a must-have for me and my clients.
It's like my boat is floating on air.
They're easy to install.
Fully adjustable.
It makes a day on the water a whole lot more comfortable.
Smooth your ride with Smooth Moves.
Welcome back to Angling Buzz. Up next is our highlight destination feature, and we're heading to Lake Vermilion.
That did not take long. Jake and I are on one of our favorite bodies of water, Lake Vermilion. You know, over the years, we've actually spent a lot of time up here shooting television shows for walleye, smallmouth bass, muskies. I mean, it's one fabulous lake. Got him. But what we're gonna look at is Lake Vermilion smallmouth bass fishery. And it's prime time for getting on big numbers of brown bass like this one here. And that was the first spot, the first drop. now that's what I call bass fishing, beautiful fish.
It's an awesome one, Jim.
Yeah, we'll get her back in the water.
All right, so what's really unique about these smallies is how much they'll move throughout the year. You know, they start out in early spring, they're up in the shallows, these back bays, they're spawning, they're eating food. And then later in the year here, these fish have moved out to these like main lake reefs and points, and they'll really cover this whole lake, moving around. We're working a rock pile spine that comes out to the main lake here. And these fish are sitting, really relating right to the point of this rock pile.
Got him. Feels like a pretty good one. There you go.
Nice one, Jim.
That's a good one right there. Just picked up a crankbait and started ripping it fast right over the tops of the reefs. You know, when you look at these big reef systems, what's really sort of intriguing about smallmouth bass is that they move up and down off these reefs dependent on what they're feeding on. They get up on top and feed on crayfish. Then sometimes they dump off the outside edges and they'll feed on In this particular lake, it's got a lot of ciscos and tullibees. And then they'll be feeding on minnows out there, so it really sort of dictates, you know, what area they're fishing and what baits you want to throw. Come here, buddy. There's a good one. That did not take long. He hit a DT8, which is a really nice bait. It's a really nice sized crankbait for smallmouth bass, and the fact it's a little bit of a smaller profile lure, you know, smaller bodied bait, but it still runs pretty deep. Come here, buddy. Look at that. Pretty fish. Little beauty, little fat football. These fish, that's one thing. Aren't these things pretty?
Oh, so
I mean,
pretty.
they're so cool. They're so red in color in this lake. Look at that thing. They're just gorgeous. Pretty fish, though. Oh, you know, I caught this first fish on a drop shot, the second fish on a DT8. You know, when you look at in the boat here, Jake and I got a lot of different baits tied on. We have one thing that's sort of important with these baits, each one of them moves in different location in the water column. Starting in the top, we have topwater baits. We have a prop bait and a popper. Going to the mid-depth level, we got crankbaits, jerk baits, swim baits, and then we have bottom bouncing baits such as like a Ned profile, a drop shot rig, and a tube. So it's really dependent, so we're mixing it up. We haven't fished here this year for smallmouth bass, so we're sort of in a little bit of an experimental mission trying to figure out where the fish are concentrated. Oh gosh, look at how tough he is. No question about it. When it comes to really fabulous, fabulous smallmouth bass fishing, no question about it. Lake Vermilion is one of the top choices in Minnesota. And you know what? We actually have a lot of really, really good smallmouth bass fishing, but this lake here is about as fun as it gets.
Yeah, Lake Vermilion is a very fun place to fish, and it reminds me a lot of a lake that you would see up in Canada. I mean, big smallmouth bass, big walleye, and big muskie. Well, stay with us. After the short commercial break, we have our Buzz Bite reports as Angling Buzz continues.
Like you and my friend, you're not very much like you. By my side, I see things differently. You're my best friend, yes, my best friend, rolling through this world together. You're my best friend, very best friend, very best friends forever and ever.
Lake Vermilion. Explore. Relax. Reconnect.
Minnesota's most beautiful lake.
Get hooked on our trophy walleye,
That's a beauty.
bass,
My favorite fish.
muskie fish.
That's a beauty there.
Things to do? You'll never get bored.
Rooms with a view? We got 'em.
Lake Vermilion. 4 seasons of fun.
Hey guys, Caleb Wisted coming to you from Northwest Wisconsin. Things are heating up here in the Northwoods, and it's heating up fast. We had ice out just a couple weeks ago on some of the big lakes, and they are already in the mid-50s. And the fish are really active right now. Walleyes just finished spawning in a lot of these lakes less than a week ago. Even though the water temp's warm, they're still in recovery mode. They can be a little hard to catch in those bigger lakes, but they are still catchable on some of those weed lines and drop-offs, especially towards the evening. And then at night, we've been seeing quite a few walleyes move really, really shallow. So I'm talking like less than 3 feet of water up on sand flats. And you'll find some fish there, especially right after dark. As far as bass go, smallmouth are just starting to move onto the beds right now on a lot of these bigger clear lakes, or getting ready to. So it's a great time of year to hammer the smallmouth on jerkbaits still, you know, especially if they're not quite in spawn mode. And then Ned rigs. Ned rigs is a killer way to catch both largemouth and smallmouth right now. Good luck, get out there and get hooked up, guys.
Thanks, Caleb. Now let's head to the Metro and join Matt Johnson, who's been on an awesome largemouth bass bite.
For starters, we're seeing a lot of our fish, especially the largemouth, is staging on main lake points, big expansive weed points. Now they're moving in to do the spawn. That's happening, that's starting to become more prolific. And then we're seeing some fishing between the docks. Again, these big expansive weed flats seem to be where we're getting 5 fish on 6 casts type things, right? So that's been where a lot of fish are locating. Shallow bays, even mouths of bays, and they're doing their thing. You know, moving on to the meat and potatoes of how we're catching our bass. Moving baits seem to be king. We're getting reaction strikes out of these fish. These fish are in the 2 to 6 foot range, it seems like, and they are crushing baits that they don't want in their area. So we're using a lot of chatterbaits and swim jigs. I don't need to beat a dead horse with chatterbaits, but I'll bring this one up to the camera. You can see the paint is almost worn off of that blade, and that's just from today. This is a 1/2 ounce green pumpkin jackhammer, and I'm putting you can put whatever your favorite tail is on there. This just happens to be a green pumpkin chartreuse, little, split craw tail, and this catches a pile of fish. This is just a steady retrieve, and they whack it.
Thanks, Matt. Now let's head north to Lake Vermilion with Billy Rosner.
Muskie opener is approaching fast here in a couple days on Vermilion. What I've had success with over the years is fishing those back bays and coves with sand in them from 3 to 6 feet of water. Those muskies are coming off their spawn and they're moving around in those areas for about 10 days before they start moving out. So my approach is easy. I like fan casting those areas. The Blue Fox inline, the Super Vibrex works great. The MEPS work great. The Super Bowl spinner baits by Blue Fox work great. I like the 360 swim baits, the Super Shad, the wrap, and I like the smaller suics also. Focus on those bays and coves, like I said, in the afternoon, especially when that water temperature warms up 2, 3, 4 degrees. That's really key. It gets that metabolism going on those fish, and you should have some success muskie fishing on Vermilion.
Thanks, Billy. Now let's head south to Leech Lake with Chuck Hassey.
The good news is the fish have spawned, they're starting to recover, and the bite is picking up. The shallow water jig bite, big hardwoods, pine point, stony point, 6 to 10 feet of water has still been really good. What we're noticing this year, however, is the water is getting extremely clear. With all the boats and the clear water, that has resulted in some spooky fish. So one thing that I've been doing to try to combat that is marking fish on my side imaging or my active sonar and actually using a slip bobber setup so that I can put that bait out away from the boat right on top of the fish. It doesn't have to be a shiner that you put on these jigs. I've caught just as many fish over the last week to 10 days on crawlers and leeches. So that's what's working right now.
The Rumble Shad from Northland Tackle. Fishing is better with balsa. With the use of the heat compression molding process, you get unmatched precision that gets you farther and is true on the troll. This master of disguise not only mimics shad, but its unique design and wicked color patterns covers perch and panfish too. The Rumble Shad from Northland Tackle. We are walleye.
Developed from the latest technology, Blackfish Technical Apparel outperforms, so anglers have gear that they can trust in, no matter the conditions.
Looking for the perfect fishing vacation? Leech Lake, Minnesota. There's over 112,000 acres of water to explore, with fantastic walleye, bass, pike, panfish, and trophy muskies. The fishing opportunities are endless. Leech Lake has it all, with over 30 resorts, lodges, campgrounds, and hotels line its pristine shores. Plan your trip. It's Minnesota's original up north vacation destination.
Want to save even more at Fleet Farm? Well, now you can with Fleet Rewards. It's free to sign up and there's no credit card required. Using Fleet Rewards is easy. Earn points every time you shop. Plus, get exclusive member offers, birthday and anniversary perks, free tire rotations, and more. Download the Fleet Farm app or create an account at fleetfarm.com/rewards to start earning points today. Fleet Farm, proudly serving the Midwest since 1955.
And now it's time for our cool products brought to you by Fleet Farm. We're going to start out with a crankbait from Northland Tackle. Now this is the Bagley Flat Balsa B2, which is under the Northland Tackle brand. This is a shallow running, flat-sided square bill crankbait that works perfect for fishing around rocks, shallow water timber, as well as weeds. The Flat Balsa B2 by Northland Tackle and Bagley Baits. And next from Balls Out Mount, they have a variety of different sizes and colors for different mounting options for your marine electronics. These are heavy-duty mounting systems made from aircraft-grade aluminum. These things are strong and sturdy. You have a lot of investment in your electronics, and Balls Out Mounts has you covered. And next from BMC, this is the Ned Rig Jig. I've used these a lot. These are a fantastic jig for this kind of versatile bait that catches not only bass, but also kind of taken off in the walleye world. You see a great hook design on this. It has a conical keeper to hold the worm or your Ned worm on there, nice and sturdy, and different weights all the way from 1/16 of an ounce all the way up to these heavier ones to 1/4 ounce, the Ned Rig Jig from BMC. And for a soft plastic option to fit on the Ned Rig, well, Z-Man right here. This is a finesse TRD as well as a big TRD. This is a very durable, soft, stretchy plastic. Actually, they're a Lastec, which is proprietary to Z-Man. It's extremely tough. It's also very buoyant, so when you're dragging your Ned Rig across the bottom, it sticks up and really key to getting fish to bite. You want that buoyancy in your soft plastics. Many times, that's the difference. And Z-Man has it in their Lastec, finesse TRD, and big TRD Ned worms. And for big bite baits, a curly tail grub. This is great because all you have to do, basically just cast it out and reel it, put it on a light jig head, and this will catch everything from bass, crappie, walleye, pretty much anything that swims a bright color like this, more bait fish colors, can work as well. This is the 4-inch curly tail grub, and pretty much I'd say anywhere across the upper Midwest, put this on a jig, cast it out, reel it in, you're gonna catch fish. And next from Rapala, the new DT8. This is a new addition to their DT line. DT stands for dives to, and this, well, 8, it dives to 8 feet, and this fits in between their DT6 and their DT10. And if you're fishing at that depth range, which is a pretty, I'd say, a pretty good depth range around, or, you know, across the upper Midwest for bass, especially smallmouth bass, just cast this out, crank it in. It's made of balsa, great lip design, great action, good VMC hooks on there, the DT8 from Rapala. And next from Blackfish Gear, this is the Women's Storm Skin Jacket. Now this is 100% windproof, 100% waterproof, and a nice comfortable fleece interior lining. And this is basically an all-season jacket to keep you warm and keep you dry. It's extremely comfortable, waterproof. Zipper on the front, you have great pockets inside here, very comfortable, waterproof and windproof jacket from Blackfish. And up next, 2 different rod options from St. Croix Rods, one baitcaster, one spinning. We're going to start with the baitcaster. This is the Legend Tournament Bass Series, and this is a higher end series for the serious bass anglers, tournament bass anglers, and these are actually technique specific, designed for different presentations for bass fishing. This one happens to be the Power Glass Cranker, and these are high-end, top-to-bottom rods from St. Croix, the Legend Tournament Bass Series. And the Victory line from St. Croix, this is great if you're just starting out into bass tournaments and becoming a little bit more of a serious bass angler. Check out the Victory Series line. This one, specific one here, is the lightweight model. This is a 6-foot, 10-inch medium light power, and this would be great for finesse bass fishing. If I'm Ned rigging, drop shot, split shot, hair jigging, small swim baits, this would be perfect. So definitely want to look into the Victory Series line of rods from St. Croix. And lastly, from Smooth Moves, the Smooth Moves Ultra. Many smallmouth lakes across the upper Midwest. It's big water. Mille Lacs, the Great Lakes, even some of our bigger river systems, they get big waves. Well, Smooth Moves Ultra absorbs those waves and steady your back. This is a back saver. It adjusts from 100 pounds up to 300 pounds. These install easily, and it's an awesome seat system for any boat, the Smooth Moves Ultra. Be sure to shop online at fleetfarm.com and also visit your local Fleet Farm store. And right now it's time for our technique of the week.
Just a real quick rundown of what I have rigged up in my boat. One would be a Ned rig. A Ned rig is a real versatile bait for a lot of different species, but it works in lots of different cover and works all season long. And then on to a hair jig. I use a couple different types of hair jigs, one like a bucktail hair, that works for smallmouth bass, but also walleyes, pike, love it. And then of course marabou. Marabou is just a sneaky little bait that you can get in there. I run different sizes from really light marabou to heavier marabou, depending on how deep I'm fishing. And then swim baits. I use swim baits a lot, especially in the spring and fall. But even in deeper applications, when the bass start to slide deeper, as they follow that bait fish into some of the deeper humps, I throw swim baits quite often. And then of course, hard baits. I love fishing jerk baits. It's probably one of my favorite baits to throw all season long. I've always got some sort of X-Wrap or Shadow Wrap rigged up, ready to go. And then of course, on to crankbaits. I use a lot of crankbaits, especially when I'm trying to achieve certain depths. Different diving depths of crankbaits, you know, starting with some of the shallower running baits all the way up to say like the DT16s. I can cover a lot of water with a crankbait. It's more of my search bait. And then of course, at certain times of year, a crankbait is just heavenly to fish. And then lastly, something that I have tied on from, let's say, post-spawn until the fall, and that's topwater. There's times a year where I think, you know, it's not really a topwater bite, or even times a day that I think it's not a topwater bite, but lo and behold, I always have it rigged up because I'll be throwing a presentation and then I'll see a bass hit the top somewhere. I can easily grab that bait and toss it out there. Nothing better than seeing a smallmouth crack a bait on top. But that's my rundown. 6 baits that I always have rigged up at any given time. That way I'm ready for any type of fishing situation. Being versatile is really important to being a successful angler.
Well, Tony knows a lot about catching bass up here in the North Country, no question about it. Well, next week's show, we're going to switch gears for summer walleye strategies. And as always here on The Buzz, we want to help remind you to stop the spread of aquatic invasive species anytime you're leaving any body of water. Remember, clean, drain, dry. Be sure to enter our sweepstakes. You can enter at fleetfarm.com. Also, in your local Fleet Farm store, you can win an awesome weekend up on Lake Vermilion, which you saw earlier in the show. It's a big fish factory. Well, thank you for joining us this week. I'm Troy Lindner, and we'll see you next time.